Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and Assalamu Alaikum. I'm sitting in the Watford studios of Hidayat Television. Today is Monday, the 4th of May 2015. From today onwards, we are bringing a regular weekly program in English language for all our viewers in the UK and across the world wherever our television is being watched. So this program is in English language. So for those who have a rudimentary knowledge of Urdu language or bilingual understanding of that language, they would be much more relaxed to listen to this and watch this program, which is essentially in English language. The program would be focusing every week on the issues pertaining to the Middle Eastern politics, Middle Eastern security, and politics of South Asia, and all the regions on the globe wherever the Muslims in particular and the oppressed human beings in general they live. So today's program is covering the politics of Middle East and the role that Saudi Arabia is playing for the last many years, and particularly for the last few months ever since the Yemen crisis that emerged, a man-made crisis that emerged. Every week we have the pleasure of a guest who has 50 years of professional experience. He has worked for ITN and BBC for over 40 years and doing the flagship program Panorama as one of their main correspondents. So we have in the studios, and a pleasure to introduce him, Mr. Alan Hart. Alan, welcome to the program.
Good to be with you, Ijaz.
Now, Alan, without your permission, when I was doing search on you, I was able to dig out one of your pictures. May that be a classified picture or unclassified, that you have to comment later on to that. So can I ask our studio in charge, the producer, to show the picture of Alan with King Faisal of Saudi Arabia? Does this bring any nostalgic memories?
Was the picture shown? Oh, there it is. Yes, that's 50 years ago, about 50 years ago. Now, let me tell you, I was a great admirer of King Faisal, and I still am. I think the Middle East would not be in the mess it is today if he had not been assassinated. And I truly believe he was the first and the last great Arab leader of modern times. But can I tell you in a minute or so my favourite King Faisal story? Mm-hmm. That picture was taken. I was the first Western correspondent to interview him for television. I interviewed him for 1 hour, question, answer, question, answer. When the camera crew had left, I was left alone with King Faisal and his interpreter. And I said, Your Majesty, I want to ask you a question, and please don't take offence at it. And he examined me with his bloodshot eyes. He undressed you to your soul with his eyes, which I think is why Kissinger was unhappy in his presence. He said, OK, ask your question. I said, Your Majesty, you have just answered my questions for 1 hour. You have said nothing interesting, nothing important, nothing newsworthy. Why do you speak in such riddles? And he looked at me and he touched my knee and he said, You must understand my problem. Mm-hmm. If I say the wrong thing, or even the right thing the wrong way, the Middle East will go up in flames. But that's not the end of the story. He took his leave of me and I watched him disappear up a corridor. And for some reason I stood there, just looking. Seconds later, he came back and he beckoned me to go and join him. And I sat down with him and the interpreter, and he said to me, Look, I asked you to understand my problem. I understand yours. Tomorrow I will arrange for you to interview one of my sons. He will answer your questions explicitly and directly, and before you run the interview with him, you can say, You understand, the king speaks for his father. Now, how's that for political shrewdness? A shrewdness that went out of Saudi Arabia when he died.
So your journalistic career, it spans 5 decades. But in addition to that, you are equally good in writing, and I can recollect the famous book you wrote 10-15 years ago. That was Zionism, the real enemy of the Jews. Would you say something about that book? What inspired you to write that book?
Well, first of all, I have to say it's given me a unique position. I'm not only red flagged by Zionism, because the book tells the truth about the making of the Palestine problem. Not only does Zionists not want the truth told, the Arab regimes do not want the truth told. Because the fundamental truth is that the Arab regimes never ever had any intention of fighting to liberate Palestine. But what the book is, in its American edition, it's 3 volumes. It's a complete rewrite of the entire history of the conflict, updated to President Obama's surrender to the Zionist lobby. But what's important about it is that the book is not just confined to what happens in the region. As the events unfold, I'm taking Zionism's propaganda lies apart and replacing them with the documented truth of history. But as the events unfold in the region, I take my readers behind closed doors in London, Paris, Washington. So what is magic about my book, and a lot of people have said so, you can start out knowing nothing worth knowing about this conflict, which frankly is most people. And if you read the book, and it's easy to read, you can see how all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle fit together. Now, Ijaz, why is it important? Zionism makes its case by simple assertion. Mm-hmm. Things were what they were and are what they are because Zionism says so. And basically the Western world has come to accept that. The problem is you can't take on Zionism in argument and discussion by simple counter-assertion. It's not enough to say Zionism is wrong. You have to say Zionism is wrong because. Mm-hmm. My book's got all the becauses in it. So it's a powerful weapon for those who want to engage in the truth of history. But as I say, it has me red flagged by both Zionism and the regimes of this corrupt, fairly impotent, authoritarian Arab order.
No, there's a very famous proverb in the Arabic literature, and that is Suduru Rijale Makhazinul Asrare. That means the chests or the bosoms of the men are the treasures of the secrets, the warehouses of secrets. So your chest, your heart, your bosom must be carrying a lot of secrets. Now, initially you talked about King Al-Faisal, and I'm also admirer of that. During his 11 years rule, I mean, he had a tragic death. He was assassinated. We call him martyred. We also respect him a lot. As a student of history, we respect him a lot. Two of his sons became very, very famous. One was Turki Al-Faisal, who ran the intelligence agencies for quite some time, and also he was had a small cameo for a couple of years as ambassadorial cameo in Washington D.C. before Adil bin Jubair. So he replaced Binder bin Sultan, and he was succeeded by Jubail, who is the current foreign minister, just tipped last week. Now, one of the sons of King Faisal was Turki Faisal. The second is more famous, is Saud al-Faisal, who just after the death of King Faisal, he became the foreign minister. From 1975 up until 2015, until last week, he was in charge of the foreign ministry. He was the Mandarin of foreign policy of Saudi Arabia. 40 years. I think the longest serving foreign minister in our history, in our record of history, whatever we have read. Now, would you say something about your interaction with these two princes?
Well, I'm not going to name which one, but I will tell you a terrifying true story. 3 years ago, one of them was here in London. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine knew that I was very friendly with King Faisal. So he said, one of his sons is here. I think you should meet with him. So we did. And I spent an hour alone with him. And I made 2 comments to him. I said, nothing is going to change in the Arab world until your bloody regimes are more frightened of their own people than they are of America and Israel. And he said, you're right. And my second comment was this. If tomorrow the Israelis exterminated all the Palestinians, your bloody leaders would raise a glass of champagne behind closed doors and say, thanks. Mm-hmm. And he said, you're right. The truth is so obvious, and it comes through almost every page of my book. As I said, the Arab regimes have totally betrayed the Palestinian cause. The truth is that when Israel closed the Palestine file in 1948 with its victory on the battlefield then, the Arab regimes shared the same hope as Zionism and the major powers, that the file would remain closed. That's the truth.
I would like to mention a very interesting character in the history of the rise of the House of Saud and the rise of and how this state was consolidated. There was a character in 1909, so about 106 years ago. He was an assistant commissioner in Lahore with the name Harry Philby. So Harry Philby served in Lahore for about 18 months as assistant commissioner in Lahore city. From there, he was there for 5 years, but he was called back to the Westminster and with the special assignment and go to Hijaz and support King Abdulaziz or the Prince Abdulaziz or the Abdulaziz the adventurer towards forming his own big empire like this House of Saud. So he went there, he was part of an integral part of the conspiracy towards getting rid of the sharifs of the region. So he was there, and later on he became very close. He had the access to the harem of Abdulaziz. And if you remember, the mother of Abdulaziz was also a Suderi, from the Suderi, famous Suderi tribe. And Abdulaziz also had 2 wives from the Suderi clan. And one of those, Hassa bint Suderi. So most of the powerful, today we have the Saudi 7. We had the Saudi 7 sisters, 7 brothers and 4 sisters. 3 of the brothers, they have died. Okay, Fahad was the eldest of Suderis, and after Fahad was Sultan, who was the heir apparent. He died as heir apparent he was only for 6 months. And then Naif also died. And now we have Salman. After Salman, we have another person is Abdul Rahman Suderi. Then we have the gentleman Turki Suderi, who is not interested in the state affairs. And then we have Ahmed Suderi. So out of the 4 sisters, 1 sister died, 3 Suderi. Now, giving you that reference, where did you rate King Salman and the way he has behaved in the last 3 months ever since he took the throne in January this year? So what is the picture which is coming in front of us after the recent major reshuffle?
Well, I think what he's done, he's obviously appointed a younger generation. You might call them hardliners. They're the architects of the bombing of Yemen. But the real question becomes, why have the Saudis resorted to this bombing? Now, I think there is a very simple answer, and I think there is a parallel between the way Saudi Arabia is playing the Iran fear card and Netanyahu's Israel is playing the Iran fear card. Netanyahu is playing it mainly to divert attention from Israel's ongoing colonization and ethnic cleansing by stealth. The Saudis, one of the main reasons why they're playing this Iran fear card is because they're not totally stupid, mostly stupid, but not totally stupid. They know they are sitting on a time bomb of discontent in their own country. Now let me explain what I mean by that. As I understand it, very many Saudis, possibly even a majority of Saudis, are fed up with the present setup. They're fed up with the corruption, they're fed up with the authoritarianism, they're fed up that not even the smallest step down the road to what is often called democracy has taken place. So in that sense, I say that the royal family and its thousands of princes, they are sitting on a ticking time bomb. So as I say, I think one of the main reasons why they've resorted to bombing is to distract from that. The other is that they've worked out, I think correctly, that they can no longer rely on America, at least not as much as they used to. So this is their way of saying, okay, but we can take care of ourselves. The trouble is, and where the stupidity lies, if the last 30 years in the Middle East has taught us anything, whether it be Bush and Blair or whoever was doing it, it is that if you resort to military action for a political purpose, it will be counterproductive. So I don't think there's any way that the Saudis can achieve anything by knocking the hell out of Yemen, except making the lives of Yemenis even more miserable and impossible. But what they will do is they will give new life or more life to Al-Qaeda, and they will fuel more and more problems in the region.
Now, talking about the parallels between the Saudis and the Israelis, using the Iran threat card together. Now, doing some research on today's topic, and I got some very strong clue, very well documented, that there are currently strong hotline links between the six Saudi powerful office bearers
and Israel and Egypt.
And Israel and Egypt. So Egypt is the smaller bit of the triangle.
That's the secret trio, in my view.
Absolutely. The Saudi intelligence chief, Khalid bin Humaydan, is constantly in touch with the Mossad chief, Tamir Pardo. The Saudi military chief, General Hassin, he is in touch with Gadi Eisenkot, the Israeli IDF chief. The defense minister, luckily we don't have the current cabinet for Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv, we'll be having next week soon. So there are relations between the Saudi palace and the Prime Minister of Israel. So when that sort of strong nexus is there, if I can use that word, and Fatah Sisi comes into that. So do you think that after that very close association, is there still any enemy the Saudi palace is envisioning about the region?
Well, I think they do fear what I've called this wave of time bomb of discontent. There's no question that many Saudis are fed up with the existing system. But to date, they've been bought up, they've been bribed. I mean, it was recently announced that Saudis have spent, 130 billion on buying the loyalty and saying to their citizens, don't question us. But what I find curious about it, I believe Zionism, the Zionist state of Israel, is on a road to suicide. And I believe that the Saudis are also on the road to suicide. I don't share the view of those that they've only got months or a few years. I think maybe they've got 8, 9, 10 years. But I think that ticking time bomb will eventually explode.
The strategic location of Yemen, on one side we have the
control of the flow of oil.
Red Sea. Then just around the corner after Oman there is the Persian Gulf. So anybody with legitimate government in Yemen, the popular democratic government in Yemen, independent of Saudi Arabia, I mean, may that be of the Houthis, they call them rebels. I don't buy that idea. They are the freedom fighters. They are the pro-democracy activists, if I can say. And so if they choke Bab al-Mandeb entry into Red Sea, and Iran is becoming a power, is becoming a power to reckon with in Persian Gulf. So there is an attendant fear. There's a big risk for all the maritime interests, especially the transportation of the oil from the Persian Gulf through Red Sea, and then bringing the finished goods from the Mediterranean through Red Sea and back to the Arab states, the GCC, 6 GCC states. Now, if Yemen is under the legitimate democratic government, there wouldn't be a free lunch for all the ships passing through that. Is that one of the major concerns for the bigger powers of the?
I think it's a major fear of the Saudis. I think it's a major fear of all the Western powers that rely on oil. But my own view, and it's pure speculation, I don't think the Houthis or any government would do that. For heaven's sake, Yemen is one of the poorest countries in the world. Half of its people don't have access to clean water. The unemployment rates are staggering. The last thing they need is to create a crisis that would actually finish them absolutely, totally economically. So I just don't see that as an option for anybody who's calling the shots in the Yemen.
I still recollect that recently Jawad Zarif, the Foreign Minister of Iran, he put forward his 4-point formula towards lasting peace in Yemen. That's quite based on realism, and if we take into account empirical evidence of that, all the 4 points is the cessation of hostilities straight away, ending to the air raids, and a broad-based coalition government, interim government, and where Houthis, they have the legitimate right to be being the stakeholders. I think that they're fair and square demands on the part of it. And the same is being said. In the end of the day, even the United Nations has endorsed that 4-point formula. If that is taken as a lead, then there is a solution at hand.
Ijaz, three things need to happen to stop the Middle East being confined to hell, in my view. The first is there needs to be a solution to the Israel-Palestine problem. I think that's absolutely number one. The second is that there needs to be real pressure from America and the West on these authoritarian regimes to start to open up the political liberties and to start moving down what we call the road to democracy. But the third thing is, and tell me whether it's ever going to be possible or not, there needs to be a pragmatic rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Is that just pigs flying in the air at supersonic speed, or is there any possibility it could happen?
Is there a near possibility of that?
Yeah, is there? I'm asking you.
Well, we'll all see. The viewers, we would like to mention here that this is a live and interactive program, and we will be taking a break shortly. And after the break, you would be welcome to, you would be invited to make telephone calls and ask any question from Ellen and or pass any comment on the program. So after the break, when we come back, the telephone lines would be open. So we take a short break and stay with us.